Do I believe we ought to reform our policy towards one or more countries in the Middle East? Yes or no? Impacting through the resolution really, really helps simplify things. Okay. Okay. Comparative advantage cases really quick. I just want to remind you guys of something. Someone throw out there what a comparative advantage case is. Yeah. I'm a tree, but I don't look like one. Okay, Gabe.
It's a case that usually has inherency in advantages or else sometimes harms, and the entire point of it is to provide some sort of advantage over the status quo, so the criterion is usually combat.
Yeah, so they're basically like, if we save 10 bucks, then you should vote for us, kind of a thing. Okay? Like, if we make, at the end of the day, the world better, then you should vote for the affirmative team. We provide a comparative advantage.
Okay, this is like the catchphrase of them.
At least we save money.
If a team says this, they're probably running combat cases.
And their case is probably really bad.
True bad.
So,
Combat is basically code word for a cop out.
Hey.
not always true, but yeah,
Generally, yeah.
for the most part, yeah.
Comparative advantage is a bad name. Because when we talk about comparative advantage, we're talking about a case that does this, where you have almost no harm and really no advantages, but there's not really a disadvantage, so they just say that at least we do something right. In reality, every case should have a comparative advantage over the status quo. There's a reason to prefer the app world over the neg world.
Oh yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, every case should do that. Generally, the way they structure that is different, though. Combat.
I know what you mean by comparative advantage.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's all. I've always felt that it's a bad name
Mm-hmm.
It is.
for what we're talking about.
The right name is small cases that don't have justification.
Jacob.
Actually, there are some really fantastic combat cases.
Yeah.
Which is really easy to attack.
To the law of entropy, there's always going to be a greater disadvantage or same disadvantage as advantage. So in essence, the negative team could win if they had infinite prep time.
Yes, if the negative team had infinite prep time, they would probably win. Like, but you don't get that. So we don't have that in high school. They don't have infinite prep time. So as cool as that would be to on the negative win all of your rounds, it would stink to be affirmative. Everyone would go 3-3, which means no one would ever break. So speaker points, yeah. Okay. Attacking combat cases, we already talked about this, right? You hammer home disadvantages. Did we already talk about that? Yes, no, maybe so, maybe a lit? Okay. Well, okay, the whole premise of a comparative advantage case is that they provide a comparative advantage, okay? Which means if you go for significance or solvency, what they're going to say is, well, at least we still save 10 bucks. Ha ha, joke's on you, we make the world better, kind of a thing. Which means if you focus on DAs, what you show is that they create a comparative disadvantage instead of a comparative advantage. And you hammer them home on the impact debate instead of the, well, it's not as big of a deal as you made it out to be, or you don't solve as much of the harm as you made it out to seem, okay? So understand policies aren't free. I generally remind the judge of that at the very beginning. When we pass a policy, it expends political capital, time, money, effort, yada, yada, yada. Policies aren't free. They come with unintended consequences. Then you follow it up with DAs, but don't fall into the significant solvency trap, okay? Ooh, okay, attacking squirrel cases. So we finally get to talk about that.
We need to find that. Have you guys seen the video of the German people trying to say squirrel?
Yes.
So funny. If you get a chance, look it up. We should find that and play it.
How do they say it?
It's like squirrel. Like they can't say it.
Yeah, Gabe.
I just want to say, one thing that I've done against combat cases and has worked pretty well is, I don't know what you think about this because you say don't fall into the significant solvency trap, but
Yeah.
What I often do is I get up and cross X and I ask them directly, do you as the affirmative team have to prove that there's a significant problem? And they're going to look really weak if they say no, because they're basically admitting that their case does not have a significant problem.
Yeah.
And that looks really bad to a judge, so chances are they're going to say, yes, we do, and then you hammer them home on how they don't.
See, if I was running a comparative advantage case and someone asked me that, I would say, we have the burden to make the world better. So I wouldn't really answer your question. I'd kind of rephrase it. But if you get them to agree to that and you feel like that's the best use of your time, then go for it. So, cool. So attacking squirrel cases, you can just go ahead and start filling that out. Okay, first off, don't psych yourself out. When you hit a case that you don't have evidence for, Don't just sit there at the back table with your partner and just have a silent freak out session where you're just like about to cry, but you don't show it, and you're just writing on sticky notes like, OMG, what do we do? Well, no, you wouldn't be laughing out loud. Okay. The other team might? Yeah. First, don't psych yourself out. Stay calm, cool, collected. Understand that you're good debaters, that you can present well, that you can think well, and that you have generics that are going to apply. Okay, a couple things you need to be. First off, be coordinated. Second off, be creative. Third off, be organized. Fourthly, be persuasive. Okay, so first thing is being coordinated. Even if you're hitting a squirrel case, that doesn't excuse you from making sure that you and your partner, teammate, are cohesive in your argumentation and what you say in your speeches. Okay? In that, you should still reference what your partner asks in cross-X. Your arguments should still be linked. They should still have some connection. Even if that means spending 3 minutes of your prep time before the 1 NC just to get on the same page with your partner. And just to be like, okay, here's what we're going to argue. Even if it means taking 4 minutes before the 1 NC. As long as you get what you're going to argue for the rest of the round down pat and you both understand that, vital, vital, vital to succeeding. Be creative. Think outside the box. Generally, squirrel cases are squirrel cases because there's something that people looked at the beginning of the year and thought wouldn't work for different reasons, or it was just something that they just found through some random researching that other people haven't found because there's only like one study or one law journal advocating it or something like that. So when you hit cases like those, oftentimes squirrel cases are generally because an affirmative team will believe and buy into some philosophy or mindset that can be easily turned or argued against. Let me come up with an example because I know one. Okay, go for it.
So, yeah, a squirrel case that a couple people, wait, are we talking about squirrel cases in particular, or
Yeah.
like how to argue against them?
No, just go for it.
Just
Yeah.
a thing? Okay. My partner and I went to Night Talk last year. We were primarily an NCFCA team, so going to Night Talk meant that the majority of cases we would be debating would be de facto squirrel cases for my partner and I to debate. We loved Night Talk. We actually didn't drop a neg there because we kind of embraced this idea that the arguments that we were using, that were coming up with in our brains, were actually probably fairly good arguments. And one of my favorite rounds there was against this case that it was actually a squirrel case within STOA itself, so like a super squirrel for us. And we had 4 disadvantages that we came up with off the top of our head because they hadn't thought through their case. They just didn't have any of the facts that they needed to have. So it's totally doable. You just have to have the right perspective on it, which is that if you are thinking of an objection to a case, make that objection into an argument.
Yeah. Squirrel cases haven't been run throughout the year, otherwise they wouldn't be squirrel cases, meaning that they haven't hit a lot of arguments against them, and they probably haven't thought of all the arguments against their case, which means you're going to be able to surprise them if you think outside the box. Okay?
Yeah, that's kind of the moral of the story there, is that you just need to use your brain and just think, honestly.
Yeah, so these 2 things down here that I say to use, so use your generics, first off, those different things that we said you could prep, and use your brain. Don't forget to use your brain in debate rounds and think of arguments. Take a couple 30 seconds to a minute in prep time and just sit there and be like, what is the philosophy or the main idea of their case? And go for that. So I do British Parley debate, and in British Parley debate, as long as you sit there and think through the resolution for probably 5 minutes, you're going to follow it down to the heart of what the actual debate is, and then you can have that debate. But that takes 5 minutes or so of just sitting there kind of thinking. And you don't have 5 minutes of prep time unless you want to spend all of it while you think, and your partner is just like, what are you doing? I need some prep time. But while your opponent is speaking, listen to what they're saying, flow it, but also try and listen to what they mean instead of also what they're literally saying. Okay? Listening to what people mean and intend to say oftentimes gives you a better idea of what they're actually trying to say, okay, than what they're literally saying themselves.
Also, it's really cool if you get to say, this is what they're trying to say, this is what their evidence said.
Yeah.
It's a really fun distinction to make.
So be creative, think outside the box. Don't be afraid to run unorthodox arguments against squirrel cases or against any cases in general, as long as you are confident that you can win on it. Be organized. Just because you're hitting a squirrel case doesn't exclude you from making sure that if you present 3 DAs and your partner presents 1 more, that he tags it as disadvantage 4 and not disadvantage 1, okay? A mistake that I still see teams make where their partner will get up and present disadvantage 1, 2, 3, and then in the next speech, their partner will be like, I'd like to present disadvantage 1 or something like that, and they won't tag it as DA 4. Just be organized in what you're doing. Make sure you're using 4-point refutation. This is what they said. This is what we say. Here's our tag. Here's our reason why. And here's why it impacts to the round as a whole. Okay?
That's the hardest part of debating in squirrel rounds, because chances are the affirmative team will not be prepared to be organized, and you're probably going to be freaking out a little bit.
Provide a roadmap at the beginning of your speeches. This is where we're going to go, not only as the negative team as a whole, but in this specific speech.
And use time in your rebuttals to make sure that you have the structure down and leave the judge with the impression that you were prepared for this case.
Yes. Be persuasive. Don't forget to use rhetoric when you're debating a squirrel case, okay? Oftentimes, it's a chance to be really, really persuasive because you don't have as much evidence to read, which means you have more time to make things sound pretty instead of having to read what experts are saying in dry, boring, scholastic, academic writing, okay? You get to say it yourself in a manner that's actually persuasive, not a PhD who's writing his doctoral dissertation or something like that.
That's a pretty cool place to be.
Yes. Fantastic. So use generics, use your brain. Walk out of a okay, I really wish we had the projector here because I have this sweet picture of, so at the end of Star Wars episode 4, at the end of episode 4, when Princess Leia puts the medals around like Luke, Han, and Chewbacca's necks, you know, and then they like walk down this like the ramp kind of thing, that's how it ends, okay? You should walk out of debate rounds with some swag, okay? You should be confident in how you did and just walk out like we own that round. Okay? Your judge should have no idea that it was a squirrel case that you hit in that round, if you hit a squirrel case. They should get the impression that you've debated this case 2 or 3 times before, that you're confident in what you're arguing, and that you're confident that you won. Okay? Goal of debating a squirrel case, don't let the judge know it's a squirrel case. Final thing, I'll make this really fast because I'm sure you're hungry. Dealing with contradiction. When your opponents contradict themselves, don't just say, look, they contradicted themselves, therefore you should vote for us. I think I already talked about this. Do we have the novice two peers in here? Yes? Okay, sweet. You guys might have actually heard me give this. I'm not sure. I know the advanced kids have. So identify the contradiction and then say, we think this is the stronger side of it, and then take that out, present your 3 responses to it, and then your opponents are left with 2 different options. Either A, they're forced to go with the weaker argument, which they most likely will do, or B, they're forced to argue for the stronger side, but you've already got your 3 responses out there, and so the judge is leaning towards believing you, okay? Leaning towards believing your opponent who already got their 3 responses out there, okay? What you want to do is, in either of these scenarios, you're making it difficult for the other team to decide what to argue and to argue it effectively. Because either they go with the weaker argument, or they have to counteract the influence of your responses that you've already presented and go against what the judge is already believing. Any questions on any of that? If not, let's go to lunch.